The bells of King's Landing pealed in faint, mournful echoes over the rooftops at dawn, though no festival warranted their song. In the mist-softened light, the Red Keep looked less a fortress than a crimson bruise pressed against a sky, the color of bleached bone. Along the streets below, the small folk knew only that some proclamation would be made. What they could not know was that this dawn was fashioned by Lady Olenna Tyrell, who had arrived in the city with a gardener's smile and a spider's patience. She had ridden through the Roserad gates 3 days earlier, her litter draped in Tyrell gold, yet she traveled with little fanfare. A single wagon of trunks, a septa who never spoke, and then 20 Tyrell guards in greens trimmed with silver. Sir Bronn of the Blackwater watched them pass from atop the walls, and muttered that even a goose knew to keep more feathers when winter crept close. But no one paid heed. The Dowager Queen of Thorns was, after all, an old woman, her hands spotted as overripe peaches, her eyes dimmed by years, her voice as brittle as freeze-dried sage. Or so the court believed. In truth, those hands could still thread a needle of intrigue. Those eyes saw through armor, both gilded and beggared, and that voice retained iron beneath its shriveled petals. Lady Olenna had come to reckon accounts long overdue, for she possessed letters, ledgers, sworn statements, and charred fragments dredged from ruins her gold had purchased in secret. She carried tales encoded in lemon ink, washed clean to reveal their text only under firelight. And she bore the weight of sorrow, enough sorrow to crush a heart younger, softer, kinder than hers. Her granddaughter Margaery's ashes lay in an urn in High Garden, placed upon a dais of alabaster roses. The Tyrell air smile, bright as noon on the Mander, had been extinguished by Queen Cersei's wildfire, and where other grandmothers might have collapsed in grief, Olenna sharpened hers into a spear. She began in the kitchens of the Red Keep, not the small council chamber, for secrets simmered like stewpots, and the scullions gossiped more freely than lords. One by one, she summoned them. The master baker, who remembered bringing 73 pies to the great septa morning of the trial. The butcher's girl, who swore she smelled wildfire in the undercrofts weeks before the explosion. A stable hand, who'd seen barrels carted beneath the city by torchlight. A rat chaser, who once chased vermin through tunnels that glowed a sickly green. Gold exchanged hands. Oaths were sworn. A parchment web grew wider. Next, she visited the Sept of Baelor, or what remained of it. A ring of scorched pillars jutting from the square like broken teeth. The faith militant had roped off the rubble, yet Lady Olenna walked its blackened bones as though strolling her own orchards. She knelt upon cracked marble that had once supported the statue of the warrior, and plucked a fist-sized shard of fused stone from ash. Within the stone's heart glimmered veins of emerald glass, wildfire residue, proof of the queen's treachery. Her slippered foot brushed something beneath a tangle of cinders, an ankle bone, small and pale. She turned it with 2 fingers, examining its hollow ends, then placed it in a silk purse, scented with rose oil. "The gods plant seeds in strange soil," she murmured. "Let us see what blooms." Meanwhile, within Maegor's holdfast, Cersei Lannister held court draped in crimson, flanked by Sir Gregor Clegane, that towering golem whose ruined face hid behind a visor wrought with snarling lions. To her right lingered Qyburn, his carrion smile faint as a knife scar. The queen was content, or nearly so. Tommen was gone, yet power tasted sweeter than grief to her. She drank it daily, ignoring its poison. Raven-crowned banners fluttered above the ramparts. Lannister guards patrolled the halls, yet their lions seemed sluggish, fed on empty promises rather than coin. The royal purse bled copper, not gold, and the Iron Bank had grown impatient. Still, Cersei believed herself unassailable. She had destroyed her enemies in one blast. What spark could threaten her now? It began with whispers in Flea Bottom. stories of a ledger hidden in the sewers, of barrels stuffed with wildfire dragged into caverns below the sept, by downtrodden, starving arsonists promised coin by a queen. Then came the route catchers, testifying to the City Watch. Then the City Watch itself moved, half-hearted at first. A night raid on the Dragon Pit's forgotten cellars, where they unearthed 3 casks of wildfire, stamped with the sigil of heiress pyromancer. Sir Harry Swift tried to hush the matter, but coins slid across tables whose boards were rotten with rot. The truth seeped like green flame through cracks in the city's walls. Olenna waited as truth ripened to scandal. On the eve of the Harvest Festival, she sent invitations to every guildmaster, septon, and lesser lord in the capital for a feast held not in the Red Keep, but in the ruined Sept Square. Her servants raised silken pavilions, hung lanterns of Tyrell gold, and laid carpets across blistered stone. The contrast, roses over ashes, was deliberate. As torches flickered, she greeted each guest with soft praise, gentle laughter, and cups of arbor gold sweetened with honey and tears. Beneath her polite words lay barbs. We gather in the shadow of ruin, yet roses bloom again. No man missed her meaning. A hush fell as the feast's first course arrived. Pies shaped like doves, their crusts dusted with sugar and crushed green pearls. When knives opened them, doves of paper spilled forth, each parchment feather inked with a single line of script. Depositions from pyromancers, scribe copies of city tax records revealing purchases of wildfire, sworn confessions from little birds freed from kyberns. The square rang with gasps. One parchment fluttered onto the lap of Septon Maribald of Cobbler's Square. Another landed before Lord Giles Rosby, who wheezed blood beneath his kerchief as he read. A third landed at the feet of Bronn, who laughed until tears slicked his beard. The entire city would know by morning. Cersei Lannister had not merely destroyed the Sept. She had orchestrated mass murder. While outrage brewed, Olenna's grandson, Sir Garland Tyrell, rode through the Gate of the Gods at the head of 3,000 Mander spearmen, their helms crowned by gilded roses. They marched in disciplined columns, banners snapping like applause. City guards, poorly paid and half-starved, melted aside with hardly a word. At sunset, the Tyrells encircled the Red Keep, not enough to storm it, but enough to remind the Queen that swords, unlike wildfire, could not be bottled. Inside the throne room, Cersei paced like a caged she-wolf. Maester Pycelle was dead. Qyburn held the keys to her ravens, and Jaime was still in Riverrun parleying with the Blackfish. She slapped aside a vase of lilacs, Renly's colors, and cursed the Reach. "We should have burned their fields while we had dragons," she hissed, forgetting that she had none. Sir Robert Strong thumped behind her, silent. Qyburn whispered counsel, but his words were venom tasting of rot. "We can unmask her treachery with other flames, your grace. Lies burn quickly. Let us ignite them first." Yet even Qyburn could not conjure gold from air, nor feed a starving garrison on shadows. 2 hours past the third watch, a hooded rider arrived at Maegor's Gate, bearing a sealed scroll bound in rosewood ribbon. Lannister archers knocked arrows as he dismounted. He declared himself a messenger from Lady Olenna. The captain allowed him entry under torchlight, crossbows trained on his back. Qyburn unrolled the scroll before the Iron Throne and read aloud. "To her Grace Cersei of House Lannister, first of her name. You have walked across the bodies of children to sit upon iron. You have shed blood to dye your silks. Now blood turns rust, rust turns rot, and rot turns realm. Stand down, yield the city, and face true judgment. If you refuse, the road..." Cersei tore the parchment and laughed, a brittle sound. "Tell the old crone that I buried one sept in green fire. I'll bury another in red." She signed no reply. Instead, She ordered Qyburn to rouse the Alchemists' Guild, but the guild halls had been emptied in the night, its masters gone, its stores plundered. Olenna had moved first. The queen's red cloak brushed broken marble as she strode along the gallery. Torches guttered overhead. She glimpsed her reflection in a cracked mirror. A queen without children, bereft of love, armored in spite. She slapped the glass, shattering her visage. Dawn crept over distant rooftops. A pale mist drifted across the black water, thick as unspun wool. On Egan's Hill, Lady Olenna stood beneath banners of golden roses and watched sunbeams crawl across the city like hesitant fingers. When they touched the Red Keep's crimson walls, horns sounded from every street corner. Myrish horns, Revosi horns, horns carved from aurochs horns. Their chorus was joined by bells, the same bells that had tolled at dawn. But now each clang carried a demand. Justice, justice, justice. In the street of steel, armor-smiths hammered swords in rhythm with the horns. Butchers dragged pig carcasses through alleys, staining cobblestones red, mocking the queen's colors. The small folk shouted for bread and truth. Render her to the faith, cried one. Let her burn as she burned the sept, cried another. Rumor, once kindled, burned hotter than wildfire and traveled swifter. Qyburn counseled retreat. They could sail for Casterly Rock, recall the western levies, wage a war of attrition. But Cersei would not abandon her throne. A lioness dies but does not yield, she told him. She dressed in scaled mail the color of flame, pinned a coronet of rubies to her pale hair, and summoned Lord Commander Sir Gerald Hightower's ancient white cloak, cleansed of symbols but still bearing the memory of Kingsguard oaths, to drape over Sir Robert Strong. Then she marched onto the ramparts to show the city its queen, unbowed. The sight chilled even the bravest. The mountain in white plate stood like an ice-sculpted titan, yet for every man who trembled, two more felt revulsion. They had lost kin at the sept. They had seen children scraped from rubble like ash. Olenna's evidence had snapped the last threads of fear. The disaster was treason, not grief's accident. Arrows hissed upward, clattering harmlessly against stone. But each shaft carried a message. We are not cowed. Far below, the gold cloaks formed ranks. Their captain, Cerberus Blount, hesitated. His men had gone unpaid, unwatered, unloved. Lady Olenna's purse bulged with promises. When a white raven flapped overhead, black-tipped wings blotting the sun, Cerberus' courage failed. He ordered his men to stand down. Cersei watched the cloaks part like Titus-split sand. Her teeth ground. Behind her, Qyburn gasped as horns blared again. Closer, deeper. 3 columns of Tyrell infantry advanced across Visenya's hill, shields interlocked like woven petals. At their head rode Garland Tyrell. Behind him, armored septons brandished hammers gilded with 7 pointed stars. The faith militant had risen anew, and its fury now pointed at the queen. Olenna Tyrell ascended the hill on a palanquin, borne by 8 servants, clad in rose-green livery. She alighted slowly, leaning on a cane carved of ashwood. Her voice, when it rose, was clear as summer thunder. Cersei of House Lannister, in the name of the Father, we accuse you of murder, of kinslaying, of regicide, and of petty crimes against fashion, she added with a curl of her lips. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but the accusation did not lose weight. Cersei drew her sword. Valyrian steel prayed from her father's vault. Come take me, you desiccated weed. Olenna raised one finger. From the ranks behind her emerged a slender girl, no older than 16. She wore a plain gown of dawn gray wool. Around her neck hung a simple leather cord strung through a cracked shard of sept stone, the same Olenna had plucked from the ruins. She dropped to one knee before the mother's statue and pressed the shard to her brow. This child lost her mother to your flames, Olenna said. She stands witness. Another figure stepped forward. A wound-armed stable boy, his stump bandaged fresh. His sister too, Olenna continued. One by one, the victims emerged. A baker missing an eye, a septon with charred hands, a carpenter bearing the rubble's scars. They gathered like storm clouds. Their silence weighed more than words. Cersei's sword wavered. Sir Robert Strong advanced. Crowd recoiled. The faith militant lowered pikes. Tyrell archers drew. Tension twanged like bowstrings. Olenna did not flinch. She eyed the mountain and spoke softly. Even gargoyles crack under frost. Then a sound split the dawn. No horn, no bell, but the creak of gates. Massive, groaning, reluctant. Maegor's gate opened. Jaime Lannister rode through on a dust-streaked horse, a small escort behind him. His golden armor dulled by travel, his eyes rimmed with red. He gazed at the plaza's tableau. He saw his sister on the battlements, sword in hand, and pain etched his face. Jaime, Cersei called, relief thick as syrup. Stand with me. He did not. His horse trotted forward until he faced Olenna across 5 paces. He dismounted, unbuckled his sword, and laid it at the Queen of Thorns' feet. A hush rolled across the square. Cersei's mouth parted. Jaime raised his left hand, golden, gleaming in dawn's light. Enough, he said, voice hoarse. We have spilled our family's honor like wine on stone. The realm bleeds. It must end. Olenna inclined her head, neither gloating nor grateful. Will you testify, Kingslayer? He took a breath that sounded like surrender. I will. Cersei's scream tore through the air, raw enough to shred bone. She spun, struck Qyburn across the cheek, and stormed from the battlements. Sir Robert Strong followed, white cloak billowing. Somewhere within the keep, doors slammed, chains rattled, bolts sealed. Jaime glanced at the retreating form of his sister, love warring with guilt in his eyes, but he did not move. He bowed instead to the maiden with the sept shard. For those we failed, he whispered. Olenna surveyed the stirred embers of rebellion, her expression unreadable. She gestured, and Garland signaled his men. Tyrell infantry advanced, filling the courtyard outside Maegor's holdfast, but halting at the drawbridge. No blood was spilled. The rose had bloomed as promised, not through violence but revelation. Inside the Red Keep, wildfire caches lay dormant, thanks to Olenna's purchases from the alchemists. The Queen might yet attempt to spark them, but Qyburn discovered empty racks in the vaults, stolen charges, slow fuses severed. Even flame had abandoned her. Night fell upon kings, landing cloaked in hushed prayers rather than screams. In torchlit squares, witnesses queued to testify before septons wielding quills. Up Aegon's Hill, Olenna convened an emergency council. She did not sit the Iron Throne. Its spikes were a butcher's tools, and she preferred garden shears. Instead, she stood at its side, allowing the chair to loom behind her like an abandoned relic. Justice must grow, she said, as vines grow. Slow, deliberate, firm. We prune rot, we graft new branches, we fertilize with truth. She appointed Sir Davos Seaworth to oversee grain. She coaxed the Iron Bank's envoy with promises of restored payments. She asked the Archmaesters to send healers for the city's burn. Each promise she made cost gold, and Highgarden's coffers opened quietly. As dawn's first light of the second day glimmered over Blackwater Bay, the city smelled of roses rather than smoke. Children chased petals tossed from balconies. Bells rang a gentler tune. And high above, in a tower whose shutters had been barred since madness first took root, Cersei Lannister stared at her reflection in a silvered glass. The glass showed her crown, her ragged hair, the hollows beneath her eyes. It showed a woman alone, Surrounded by enemies she had birthed herself. She lifted a goblet of wine, brought it to her lips, and paused. Below, the city waited. In High Garden, ravens waited. Across the narrow sea, a dragon queen waited. Her path to Westeros suddenly cleared of wildfire. But in King's Landing, Olenna Tyrell, gardener of secrets, pruner of queens, set down her cane and folded her hands. Petals drifted through an open window, and in their scent she found a seed of something bitter and new. Perhaps justice, perhaps vengeance, perhaps both. For a garden does not bloom by mercy alone. It thrives in the blood of those who would scorch it. The capital belonged to the rose now, and the thorns had only begun to show. Yinghua. The second dawn after the Queen of Thorns raised her banners in the capital drifted over the black water like pale milk, glazing the river's ripples in pearl, and ghosting the dark hulks of anchored galleys. Hush lay upon King's Landing, that city forever thrumming with quarrels and clatter, as though the whole realm paused between heartbeats to learn what shape its next breath would take. Carts that might have rumbled before sunrise now idled in alleys. Flea-Bottom's potboys kept their lids closed, scented steam curling in silence. Even the ravens circling the broken sept seemed to hush their croaks, wary of disturbing the fragile tension spun through the streets. Within Maega's holdfast that hush curdled into dread. The Queen Regent, so she still named herself, for to renounce the style would be to confess defeat, paced a corridor carpeted in crimson, whose nap had been worn by 4 generations of kings. Cersei's heel left tiny flecks of gemstone dust where her rubies rattled loose from their setting. Every turn of her stride scraped another half-moon in the marble's edge. She had wrapped herself in black velvet, sewn with thread-thin flames of gold, but no tailor could hide the gauntness beneath her cheeks. She had not eaten. She had barely drunk. Wine had been her solace once, yet now she feared even that faithful comfort. Olenna's roses were said to sprout poison where least expected, and the old hag had agents enough to slip a drop in any cup. A door clanged. Sir Robert Strong filled the threshold like a marble pillar, visor concealing the ruin behind it. Qyburn slithered in his shadow, breathless. "Your Grace," the former maester whispered. "The pyromancers are gone still, but I have found something else, a tincture brewed in Valyria of old. With it we can wrest secrets from stone, or from tongues too stubborn to wag. If we capture a Tyrell commander..." "Enough." Cersei's voice cracked like wheat set aflame. "Your tricks bleed coins I no longer have. Find me gold or find me victory. Curiosities do not suffice." Qyburn bowed, the motion jerky, fearful. "Gold flows where fear loosens purses, Majesty. When the Reachmen see you hold the river and the lion banner still rides the waves with the Ironborn." A hiss cut him short. Cersei turned to the narrow window embrasure. Beyond the bars, the distant harbor masts rocked like brittle reeds, yes, but on several tallest topmasts flew striped green and blue pennons beneath black sails, chased with krakens. Euron Greyjoy's fleet. The sight both steadied and unsettled her. The self-crowned storm kraken had promised dragons to her once, had promised marriage. Promises from reavers were like weather over the sunset sea. Beautiful one hour, murderous the next, yet his longships barred the bay, and that at least kept grain from sailing out to feed the Tyrells. She tapped a window ledge. "Summon Lord Commander Waters. His royal fleet remains. I will send swift galleys upriver tonight. Let them sack Maidenpool and the Trident barges. Tyrell bread rots if starved of market. Naos Nirzin Jamardish." "Yes, your Grace." Qyburn hesitated. "But the common folk starve first." "Then let them starve." Jart. She waved him off. "I am done nursing the weak." Yet as Qyburn retreated, the words tasted ash in her mouth. She had spoken thus before the wildfire. She remembered the thrill of cleansing flame, the sweet annihilation of scornful faces scorched away. She had thought the city would fear her then. They had feared, but fear slipped quick as melted snow when hunger gnawed. Across the city, in the Tower of the Hand, Lady Olenna sat not in the cushioned high back, but on a plain stool beside a sunlit window, darning a rent in her glove. Around her, the council chamber had been stripped of its Lannister crimson. The sea-blue draperies of King Aegon III had been brought out from trunks, their fabrics smelling faintly of cedar and age. A chipped star-shaped inkpot sat where Lord Tywin's golden lion had once prowled, and the carved hands of past hands looked down from the walls. Fingers cracked, knuckles pale as bone. The chamber felt humbler than its former occupant would have borne, but to Olenna it felt clean. Her council waited. Sir Davos stood with arms folded, hair wind-tangled from his dawn patrol of the grain store. Septon Eglantine hovered, parchments clutched, ready to declare tenets. Lord Giles Rosby cuffed into a scented rag, as ever. But the newest member drew all eyes. Jaime Lannister sat at the low end of the table, golden hand glimmering dull in morning light, real hand absent since storming the Whispering Wood. He looked thinner than when last he wore the white cloak, and older. Green eyes shuddered beneath sleepless lids. Olenna glanced up, needle in, needle out. "Well, Kingslayer, how fare your faculties this morn? Shall we begin?" Jaime's laugh was a rasp. "Begin? We have already begun. Your army encircles my sister. Your ravens carry tales of her crimes to every holdfast between the arbor and the neck. My father's gold is spent resisting the inevitable, and yet I, fool that I am, sit here aiding you. Olenna tied off her thread. "Cease preening, boy. Martyrdom ill suits lions. You chose honesty. Honesty binds you still. The realm needs your testimony. My testimony may end with her noose." He flexed the gold fingers. "Useless, weight heavy nonetheless. She is my twin." "Twins?" Olenna snorted. "I bore 3 sons and buried 2. Blood loyalty lives in my sap, as well as yours. Yet I do what must be done. So must you. Or have you a better remedy?" Jaime looked away. Behind his stoic mask flickered a memory. Himself in the White Sword Tower, book open to a blank page, vowing to write deeds worthy of a knightly oath. The page remained blank still, though now stained by ashes of a sept and screams of thousands. At last he met Olenna's gaze. "We try her properly. Not mob justice, not a Tyrell blade in dark. A trial." "Trial by 7? asked Septon Eglantine, voice trembling like parchment in wind. "Or 7 judges?" "No trial by combat," Jaime answered. "She would choose the mountain, and none can face him after what Qyburn wrought. A panel, 7 judges of the faith, 7 counselors of the realm. Evidence, sworn statements, my own confession of her confessions. Let the city see order restored." Sir Davos nodded slowly. "Fair. Yet we need the faith's blessing." Eglantine swallowed. "The High Septon perished in the Sept." Olenna set her glove down. "Then we choose his successor. A High Septon less amenable to wildfire." A sigh rustled down the table, relief mixed with dread. Plans bred hope, hope demanded peril. Lord Giles coughed blood flecks upon his rag. Outside the tower, word spread like bees freed from a cracked hive. The Queen of Thorns would convene a great trial. Small folk gathered at alleys' ends, eyes bright with outrage and curiosity. Bakers debated whether traitors' loaves, tiny blackened mounds shaped like lion skulls, would sell. Tanners dyed scraps, red and green and yellow, unsure yet which shade would rule. The gold cloaks drilled twice daily now, paid in Tyrell silver, But silver did not erase the memory of Stannis' men breaking at Blackwater. Many of those same guards had lost kin in the Sept's ruin. Their spears weighed differently when pointed at the Red Keep. As day waned, gongs rang from the harbor. A line of cogboats, pennants fluttering white with a golden rose, rode upriver escorting a barge inlaid with green glass that flashed emerald in sun. Upon its deck stood Mace Tyrell, garbed in cloth of gold embroidered with dancing lilies, chest puffed so wide he looked fit to burst like an overripe melon. Beside him, clad in rough-spun brown, strode a living legend, Septon Barth the Younger. Long rumored dead in the dungeons of Old Town for preaching against Septon corruption, Olenna had pulled hidden strings. His release served two aims: deliver a voice of humility to the faith, and remind the realm the Tyrells could resurrect the devout as easily as they toppled queens. Crowds parted before the barged procession. Some cheered, others looked on warily, for they remembered Mace Tyrell's braggart boasts and bumbled strategies. Mace gave them a show, tossing silver coins shaped like rose petals. Yet when the coppers and silvers clinked on cobbles, the small folk scuffled politely. No riot, no scramble. Hunger had taught them the cost of disorder. By twilight, Mace and Barth knelt before a simple cedar dais erected in the Sept's ruins. Barth accepted a circlet of pale bronze, studded with river pearls, the ancient sign of the High Septon before rubies replaced humility. He raised gnarled palms to the sky, and spoke of ash giving way to soil, soil birthing roots, roots blooming into peace. His voice carried through the square, calm as silt, unflinching as stone. People wept, though not all tears were of joy. Some were for the dead still buried beneath rubble, others for dreams torched by wildfire. From the shadow of a ruined arch, Arya Stark watched. She had come to King's Landing 2 nights earlier with a Braavosi crew, face scarred by false freckles that made her appear a baker's lass. Anger had drawn her, but now anger turned to curiosity. The Queen of Thorns waged politics with needle-thin precision. Arya's own needle, black and slender and deadly, hung at her hip. She wondered if purpose might align. A wolf helping a rose to unseat a lion. Vengeance had many roots. Inside the Red Keep, other plots sprouted. Cersei still held Qyburn's spies, and one scuttled through the tunnels this night, a dwarf girl with sharp eyes who had once been kept as jester. She overheard Tyrell captains celebrating, followed them to a cellars, glimpsed a barrel ringed by copper studs, dragon powder, not wildfire, smuggled from Cohort. The Tyrells, it seemed, considered contingencies. The spy reported all to Qyburn. He presented the knowledge to Cersei, along with a map. If they mean to use these charges to blast through the keep, we might coax their impatience. A spark in the wrong place. No, Cersei cut him, surprising herself. No more flame. The city would turn wholly against us. Qyburn's brow arched, as though his queen had grown a second head. Then, steel, your grace? Steel and mind. She paced to the map. We cannot break the ring around us, but we can bend it. The Tyrells rely on coin. Coin can be stolen. Their army relies on bread. Bread can be burned. And their mother relies on safety. Safety can be shattered. My way. She wrote 3 orders that night. One to Euron Greyjoy, promising him marriage at dawn of her victory, and urging him to blockade the Mandermouth. One to Randall Tarley, now Warden of the South despite his son's fled rebellion, luring him with talk of Reach betrayal. And the third, secret, sealed only with a smear of her blood, to Tyrion Lannister in exile, with Daenerys Targaryen. The note rearly, when dragons near King's Landing, you shall find your path opened by my war. A sister still remembers debts. She knew Tyrion hated her, yet hate could bind bargains as tight as love. If he delivered Dany early, dragons and Rose armies would clash. Chaos might birth a route to victory for the lion still within the walls. Meanwhile, Lady Olenna anticipated letters of her own. She summoned a scribe, dictating with crisp exactitude. To Prince Doran of Sunspear, golden roses invite red scorpions to join their bloom. Heed this vine. Together we may strangle the root of Lannister tyranny. To Lord Howland Reed, the wolf hallows the risen rose. Stand vigilant at Moat Cailon. Your liege's sister will soon require safe road to Winterfell. Now Waziran. To every corner she sowed alliances, yet even she could not see every thorn. Beneath the dragon pit sprawled tunnels untouched since Maegor's reign, lined with powder dragons had once roared at. Quaburn scavengers now explored these with barrow lanterns, marking vaults, measuring distance to city walls. A single strike might shatter Tyrell command, pitched on Visenya's hill. 4 days passed. The great trial loomed like a storm cloud stoked by rumor. Lists of witnesses circulated. Ironmaker Kahlo, whose wife died in the Sept. Septa Rayella, who survived in an Undercroft pocket. Loras Tyrell, thought gravely wounded at Dragonstone, now rumored to limp toward the capital for testimony. That one rumor alone sent pulses racing. If the Knight of Flowers still breathed, his legend would buoy the people and swell Tyrell pride. Inside the Rose Camp, Garland conversed nightly with his mother. He favored caution. Siege the Red Keep, starve it, withhold trial until surrender. Olenna insisted upon speed. Cutting out a tumor swiftly spares more bleeding, she said. Thus the great trial convened on the 7th day of occupation. A wooden arena ringed the Sept's crater, draped in cloth of rose and sugar-white goat, signifying the father and the mother. 7 marble blocks crowned the ring. The remains of shattered statues had been chipped to craft them. On each block sat a judge, Septon Barth the younger for the father, Lady Olenna for the mother. The faith objected until she quoted scripture of the mother's mercy. Lord Davos for the smith, representing honest labor, Arya Stark unnamed but sworn, blade laid aside for the maiden, Garland Tyrell for the warrior, Maester Samwell Tarly, newly arrived with scrolls proving wildfire caches had been. Cersei emerged, escorted by Robert Strong. She shed her crown for the first time in public, hair cropped ragged, eyes bright with sleepless fury. When she stepped onto the ash-covered platform, a susurrus rolled through the crowd, half hatred, half pity. She stood behind a waist-high rail and raised her chin like a blade. Barth intoned charges. As he spoke of children burnt alive, Cersei paled but did not look away. Olenna produced parchments sealed with the sigils of the Alchemists' Guild and the City Watch. Samwell read shipping manifests, naming Qburn as purchaser of wildfire, the moon preceding the Sept's destruction. Witnesses filed one by one. A baker missing her boy. A knight whose squire's bones had been found fused in the blast. Pyromancer Hallonen himself granted immunity. Each word drove nails into the day's coffin. When Barth called for Sir Jaime's testimony, the hush deepened. Jaime stepped down, walked to the rail opposite his sister. For a heartbeat, they were alone amid thousands, their gazes locked, twins at the moment of creation and ruin. Then he spoke, voice barely above whisper, yet reaching every ear. She told me she would burn cities before she lost her child. She told me no sin matched her love. She said wildfire cleanses. He swallowed. I begged her to listen. She would not. Murmurs boiled. Cersei's lips tightened until blood fled. She glanced left. Robert Strong towered. She glanced right. No escape. Archers lined the arena. Her eyes flicked to Qburn in stance. He shook his pale head, mouthing counsel. Then she inhaled. Yes, she said, shocking them all by answering. Yes, I destroyed the Sept. Do you think me ashamed? They stole my son, my future, my name. If I had dragons, I would scorch the world's bones for him. I would murder gods to keep my children's laughter. Yet my children are gone, so now I burn for myself. She leaned against the rail. Judge me. A faint smile curled her lips. But know this, when your roses wilt, when your bread snares maggots, when the kraken comes to feast and the dragon comes to rule, you will remember the lion's roar and pine for its echo. Barth bowed his head. Confession eases judgment. He turned to the panel. 7 stones waited, each judge to place either white or black pebble upon it. A unanimous white meant absolution. 7 black, death. Mixtures demanded penance of lesser stripes. Davos placed black. Garland, reluctantly, black. Samuel, tears in eyes, black. Arya's pebble clicked black with certainty. Olenna's black landed like thunder. Barth himself laid black. Eyes turned to Jaime. His hand trembled. He held 1 black, 1 white, weighed between fingers. Cersei's stare drilled into him. He recalled corridors scented by honeysuckle in youth, secret stolen kisses, the night of wildfire. He thought of Tommen's trusting gaze, of Myrcella's laugh in Dorne's gardens, all lost. His gold fingers could not feel the pebble, so he set white aside with the metal hand and closed flesh fingers over black. He laid it upon the stranger's stone. 7 black stones. Silence fell like dust. Yet the sentence required form, and in that pause, fate intervened. Trumpets blared at the gate of the gods. Dust clouds unfurled beyond city walls. A rider galloped abreast the arena, banner trailing. A silver spear sun on red, Dorne eyed. Behind him thundered 2,000 Dornish spearmen, Prince Trystane at their head, flanked by Nymeria Sand. They reigned at the edge of the square. Trystane lifted a scroll sealed Martell orange. "Lady Olenna," he cried, "the spear of the dawn stands with the rose. We come to fetch justice for children slain by lions." Another cheer. The moment broke the hush. Tension spilled into elation. Yet deeper tremors shook behind. More banners, twin stags black on gold, one crowned, one not. Randall Tarly marched north with Hearthguard. They bore Baratheon colors to claim loyalty to Storm's End. Tarly had sided with the lions at Highgarden, but letters from Cersei promised him dominion of the south. Olenna had not courted him. Now his host advanced behind Dornish lines. The arena erupted in strategy, whispered behind raised hands. Davos cursed softly. "We will have war within our war." Olenna's nostrils flared. "Let them come." Tarly's pride blinds him. He charges roses plant by plant, but roots lie deep. Yet even as Dornish horns split air, a new sound emerged. From above, a keening tremor, like wind torn open. People craned upward. A shadow slithered across the arena, eclipsing sunlight. Wings vast as a city square beat once, twice. Drogon, high above, riding his neck, Daenerys Targaryen glinted silver gold. Beside her, a second beast, regal, wheeled, carrying a dwarfish rider clutching reins braided of dragon leather. Tyrion Lannister. The dragon's arrival blasted ash from the sept's crater into swirling spirals. Children shrieked. Merchants dropped baskets, soldiers dropped jaws. Dragons at King's Landing again after half a century. Cersei stared up, horror masquerading as rapture. Qyburn's letters had summoned them indeed, but sooner than any plan. Tyrion guided Rhaegal downward, landing on Dragonstone Road outside the gates. Drogon perched atop the dragon pit's broken dome, roaring challenge to the city. Dany's voice carried, "Lannister and Tyrell and Martell, I come for the realm they broke, bend or burn." Olenna rose, smoothing her skirts. Events outpaced her weaving. Yet to a gardener, every storm bore seed. She called for her grandson. "Garland, escort Prince Trystane." barricade the Mander Gate. Davos, parley with Daenerys dight. She and I share a foe. Perhaps we share tomorrow. Arya slipped away, face mask shifting even as she walked, seeking vantage. Samwell hurried to find Maester Chains to treat his wheezing. Jaime looked upon Tyrion, astride a dragon with disbelief, so deep tears sprung. Cersei watched her younger brother dismount beyond the walls and kneel to the Dragon Queen. Betrayal cut deeper than swords. She turned to Robert Strong. Fetch my armor. She would meet dragonfire on ramparts before she knelt. Night rattled across the sky long before day's heat faded. The dragons circled once, twice, then settled outside for camp. Their shapes loomed in torch glow like living mountains, spines glowing ember black. In the tent pitched before Drogon's breast, Daenerys met Olenna, Davos, Trystane, even Tyrion's sister's sworn enemy, for a council of uncertain futures. Daenerys spoke first. I came to uproot the Mad Queen who burned innocents. I see you have uprooted her already. If King's Landing belongs not to Cersei, to whom? Olenna dipped her head. To the realm. Roses do not covet iron thrones. We cultivate them for worthier blooms. Yet the realm needs rule. What offer have you? Daenerys unrolled a map across the table. Bread for your people from the south. Justice for the Reach. Independence to Dorne, if they pledge support. And fire's protection until winter passes. Davos cleared his throat. Words fine, yet we stand on tinder. One spark may set city ablaze once more. Tyrion leaned over the map, tapping the red keep. Let us prove restraint. My sister will not yield, but she must. Allow me to speak to her before dawn. No wildfire remains. I know her fears. Olenna weighed the dwarf's earnest eyes. You will not turn coat again? Tyrion's smile was tired. I have no coats left to turn, my lady. I stand only for survival. Permission given. At midnight, escorted by Davos and 2 Unsullied, Tyrion passed the siege lines. He carried no weapon but wit. The portcullis rasped open, and he stepped into the lion's den. In the throne room, dark, but for braziers, Cersei waited alone. Robert Strong guarded the wall, motionless. Cersei's step echoed. Little brother, she greeted, voice dripping venom. Sister. Tyrion removed gloves, exposing palms. Come to talk of future, not past. My future ends with your head on a spike, Cersei said. He sighed. Our past says that, but look beyond walls. Roses bloom, spears rise, dragons perch. You cannot win. I can still make them bleed, she hissed. Tyrion nodded. You can, but our name bleeds first. He approached 3 paces. Robert Strong stirred. Remember father's words. A lion doesn't concern itself with the opinion of sheep. But father is ash. Sheep have grown fangs. Even lions must eat. There is no meat left. Cersei studied him. In his eyes she saw not mockery now, but sorrowed plea. That shook her more than scorn. He continued, Come with me, stand trial in Dragonstone's court. Live, perhaps as a prisoner, but live. Your story ends otherwise, with city rubble, and you beneath it. Her gaze flicked to the empty hall. Once this room bustled with courtiers bowing to her. Now only echo. She considered. Then her jaw set. You choose dragons. I choose death before chains. Chains weigh less than ash, Tyrion murmured. She turned away. Leave. I grant you safe passage, only this once. Nasumi, Ilchini, Nidivastobamara, Bakuushini, Ishtini. He lingered, wanting to say I loved our childhood in one heartbeat of memory. Instead, he bowed and left. At dawn, horns brayed anew. Randall Tarley's host outside the manor gate, clashing with Dornish rearguard. The city roused to war cries. Olenna ordered Garland to the walls. Drogon lifted skyward, flame budding in throat. But Daenerys held reins. She would not loose ruin without attempts for yield. She sent Missandei to carry terms to Tarley. Lay down arms, keep high garden under new Queen's charter, avoid dragonfire. Tarley's pride thundered. I do not kneel to usurpers hatched in foreign flames. He raised warhorn. Garland's archers loosed first volley, black-fletched shafts singing. Dornish spears bristled. Clash began. Yet above, Rhaegal swooped low. Shadows scattering horses. Randall's line faltered. Dragonfear drove ranks apart like broken harrow rows. Half his cavalry bolted south. In that chaos, Arya Stark, disguised among foot soldiers, slipped into Randall's command tent. She found Dickon Tarley binding gauntlets, doubt clouding eyes. She removed her helm. You met me once at Horn Hill, she whispered. Memory of highborn feast. Spare lives. Turn brow against lions, not dragons. He hesitated, sword half drawn. I swore to my father. Where now, to your conscience? She pressed the dagger she called Caspar into his hand. Choose. Outside, Rhaegal's flames scorched empty ground. A warning stripe. Dickon emerged, helm removed. He shouted for men to stand down. Confusion rippled. But green youths obeyed peer before father. Randall swung sword to enforce will. Dickon parried, steel on steel. The older man stumbled, disbelief wide. In that instant, Dornish spears surrounded, capturing him alive. The Manor Gate host surrendered. Word reached the Red Keep. Cersei realized her last relief failed. She donned plate-burnished crimson, crowned herself anew with twin lion diadem. She climbed the tower top expecting dragon assault. Instead, she found Jaime waiting, sword sheathed. He spoke softly. The war is over, Cersei. She brushed past. You betrayed me. No, he said. I delivered you from madness. Surrender. Live. She laughed, hollow. Live as a trophy to a silver-haired girl. No. Don't die to me. He touched her shoulder. We can leave. The world is big beyond Westeros. I'll guard you as always. Her eyes warmed with nostalgia. One heartbeat, then hardened. My home is mine. My grave will be here. Jaime's mouth trembled. Don't make me choose again. We were born together, she whispered. Perhaps we die together. She stepped to the parapet. Wind tugged hair. He realized her intent too late. She leapt. Jaime lunged, golden hand reaching. Fingers closed on air. Duin fell past banners, past stone, a red comet streaking dawn. She struck the courtyard below with a crack like splitting oak. Robert Strong jolted forward. But his leash ended. The monster knight roared anguish, inhuman, and tore helm free, revealing pale corpse visage beneath. Soldiers scattered at sight. With unnatural fury, the mountain rampaged toward the city, but dragon glass bolts fitted by Qyburn himself as fail-safe waited. Archers fired, and obsidian shattered the magic. The giant crumpled beside his mistress. Silence reclaimed the keep. Jaime descended fast as legs could carry. He knelt, cradled her broken head. Blood stained the white cloak he had taken off but still carried folded. He wept into her hair, whispering childhood rhymes. Later, he rode through the gates alone, Cersei's body wrapped in lion banner across saddle. He presented her to the great council, Daenerys, Olenna, Barth, even Tyrion, laying her at their feet. Justice is served, he said. May the realm heal. No cheer rose, only quiet. Daenerys ordered pyres for the war dead, lion and rose and spear alike, on the field of ashes where the sept once stood. She spoke words of unity, promising to rule with council of houses, Tyrell, Martell, Stark, and even the last Lannister who bent knee, Jaime. Tyrion she named hand to many murmurs, yet his wisdom with dragons and kingdoms alike impressed. Olenna Tyrell walked the garden terraces of Maegor's Keep that evening, pruning wilted hedges newly replanted. Garland approached, helm beneath arm. "We have victory, yet not peace," he said. "Dragons perch uneasy." Olenna clipped a thorn. "Peace is like a rose, perfume and prick." She looked toward distant plume, where pyres smoked. "Cersei's crimes sprouted seeds. We must plant better vines." He smiled sadly. "And you, mother, where do you plant your roots now?" "Here, for a time." She breathed deep. "But one day I shall return to Highgarden. A grandmother's bones belong beneath her own soil." She gazed west, imagining perfumed breezes over orchards. "Until then, I teach babes to hold pruning shears. Daenerys will need them." Below, city masons laid foundations for a new temple, stone quarried from cliffs beyond Rosby, said to glow pink at dawn. Barth insisted the new sept be humble. The people agreed, no towering spires to tempt tyrants with conflagration. In the dragon pit's shadow, Arya Stark found Davos as he tallied grain wagons. "I head north," she said. "Winterfell needs sword and scout. The realm may bloom south, but winter sniffs at doors." Davos grinned. "Give Jon my regards, Lord Snow, or King Wolf, or whatever title he wears these days." Arya clasped his forearm. "And you keep the queen honest." He laughed. "I'll try. Honest queens are rarer than dragons these days." A moon later, the great council convened in the Red Keep's refurbished hall. Daenerys sat on a throne of tempered steel, forged from melted swords taken at Blackwater, and dragonfire welded anew. Sleeker, less monstrous than Aegon's Iron Throne, yet formidable. To her right stood Hand Tyrion, to her left, Lady Olenna. Jaime bore a white cloak again, commander of a refounded Brotherhood of the Crown, knights sworn to court, but not to individual ruler, conceived by Davos. The first decree: abolition of secret wildfire stocks. The second: bread levies for burned districts. The third: trial of Qyburn for necromancy and crimes against the faith. He stood unrepentant, and though he argued for knowledge unchained, Barth's judges condemned him. Dragons, flame, consumed his end. At dusk, Daenerys walked ramparts with Olenna. "You have your justice," she said, "yet I sense sorrow." Olenna watched gulls wheel over the bay. "Justice nourishes roses, but grief waters them. My granddaughter still lies cold. My house lost much. I hold sorrow as root, not flower." Daenerys touched her arm. "I too lost brothers and home. Together we plant anew." Olenna nodded, the old battle glitter fading to tired grace. "Then let us plant. Dodisi, Dundashowodi." In the Reach, Highgarden's terraces rang with new life. Orphan children from King's Landing offered fosterage, learning to prune vines and recite verses of the Seven. In Dorne, Trystane and Nymeria hammered a charter of equality for sand daughters. Prince Doran smiled from his wheeled chair. In the north, Sansa stitched raven-black petals onto banners, wolf-folding rose, symbol of treaty. And in the Riverlands, Brienne of Tarth carried words of amnesty to outlaws still haunting burned hamlet. Yet peace remained fragile. Euron Greyjoy still prowled seas south, his kraken sails shadowing arbor wine fleets. In the east, word spread of a new Khalazar gaining strength, and in the far north beyond the wall, white winds gathered, ignoring thrones and blossoms alike. On a dawn nearly a year after the trial, Jaime visited his sister's tomb, built beneath the new septi, modest stone, engraved with single line, Cersei of House Lannister, who loved her children. He laid a white rose there, petals kissed gold, and whispered, "I will write our page honest at last." He turned away toward sunlight where dragons soared free above a city slowly learning trust. On the balcony above, Lady Olenna watched him go, hands clasped around pruning shears that glinted red at hinge, as though still stained by wildfire forgotten. She closed them gently, cutting a stem of bougainvillea whose bloom threatened to strangle a young olive sapling. Balance was everything. King's Landing bustled once more with laughter and quarrels and the clack of looms weaving banners of silver dragon and golden rose. In markets, men sold candied lemon and sweetbreads shaped like lilies, not skulls. The city smelled of flour instead of smoke. Bells rang again, not in mourning but in wedding ceremony. Garland Tyrell to Asha Greyjoy, forging branch between reach and aisles, surprising many, pleasing more. When winter's first snowflake drifted onto the Blackwater breakwater, children chased it giggling, unaware how rare such flakes fell so far south. An old woman in shawl of green and gold watched them. Lady Olenna felt its chill on cheek, smiled ruefully. Even in frost, roses and dew. She tucked shawl tighter and strode back into the castle, ready to advise a dragon queen on feeding cities through snow. Some nights Olenna walked the garden alone, listening to distant roar of dragons perched on towers like living gargoyles. She thought of Margaery's laughter under lemon trees, of Loras's jousts, of Willa's patient strategies, of Garland's steady heart. She thought of thrones, of wildfire, of ashes. She pricked a finger on a thorn once and watched the bead of blood swell, ruby red, before wiping it gently on white petals. "Let memory feed the bloom," she whispered. Wind rustled, carrying faint echo of bells, those same bells that years ago heralded the crowning of a boy king, Doom. Now they sang of tamer hopes. Grain harbors reopened, just courts traveling the realm, dragons patrolling coasts to ward off pirates. Peasant girls wove chains of dogros and danced along Mudgate. A new dawn promised fewer shadows. Yet Lady Olenna never forgot that gardens require vigilance. Vines wander, weeds creep, insects burrow, dot-eyed. She kept her shears honed. She wrote letters long into candlelit nights, counseling lords to share surplus, reminding the queen to temper flame with soil, and cautioning the hand that wit unsupervised grows thorny. The Queen of Thorns might one day rest beneath Highgarden arches, but not until the realm could tend itself. One spring eve, when poppies bloomed scarlet on hills once trampled by siege engines, Daenerys invited Olenna to walk the rebuilt ramparts. They watched sunset gild rooftops, dyeing the city in molten gold. "Do you regret," the queen asked, "the path you walked? The lies told, the blades drawn?" Olenna considered. "Regret implies surprise at outcome. I had none. I cultivated events as I do roses. Snip here, coax there. I regret only that roses wither sooner than weeds." Daenerys smiled wistfully. "The realm owes you more than can be repaid." "Nonsense," Olenna retorted. "Repay me by ruling wisely, burning sparingly, loving fiercely, and when time comes, pruning your own vines. Power's flower wilts if untended, remember that." They stood side by side, an old woman rooted in earth, a young queen crowned by sky, watchers upon the walls of a city reborn from ash and blood. Below, life bustled, market criers hawking sunflower oil, smiths beating swords into plowshares, septas teaching orphans letters. Above, dragons wheeled, their shadows sweeping alleys like dark sails guiding ships home. In the quiet after sunset, When lamps flickered to life across King's Landing, Olenna Tyrell returned to her chamber, sat at her desk, and dipped quill in ink scented with lavender. She opened a fresh page in her journal, the same that once held coded ledgers of Cersei's crimes, and wrote a single line before sleep tugged her lids. The thorns satisfied, the rose may rest, but the gardener never. A chill wisp coiled along the ramparts of the Red Keep. A breath of winter strayed farther south than any raven scroll predicted. It stole through merlons and guttered torches, climbed the columns of Maegor's holdfast, and drifted past the windows of chambers newly furnished for a court, still learning to breathe after years of smoke. In the Queen of Thorns' apartments, candles guttered when the draft slipped beneath the door. Their light trembled on the silver in her hair as she bent over parchment. She noticed the sudden shiver in the flames, paused, and lifted her gaze. For a heartbeat she fancied she smelled snow, an impossible notion this far south in late spring. Yet memory of the wall's chill clung faintly to the letter spread before her, penned by the new Lady Sansa Stark. Lady Sansa's script, careful and even, had arrived mottled by frost marks where the raven's breath crystallized in flight. Its message was equal parts courtesy and warning. Winter storms growing bolder, hunters finding carcasses frozen, not by weather alone, but by shadows that left no tracks, rumors of pale figures glimpsed near abandoned wildling camps. She asked for grain against the failing northern stores, and more quietly, for assurances that the Dragon Queen's reign would honor the North's pledge of autonomy, agreed beneath broken weirwood seasons past. Olenna laid her quill aside. Autonomy, dragons, winter specters. Every realm bore its troubles, and all wove now beneath her aching joints. She wanted a single hour of easy garden talk about root rot and pruning. But these days the realm's weeds were wights, krakens, and kraken-hearted men. She rubbed her temples and reached for a bell to summon a page. Rain convoys must leave before dawn. Across the courtyard, Daenerys Targaryen stood alone on a stone balcony that had once overlooked wildfire barrels stacked high. Her dragons nested at opposite ends of the city this night. Drogon curled around the broken dome of the dragon pit, Rhaegal roosting upon the high tower over the street of silk, both shadows vast and watchful. But their presence did not warm her shoulders. She wrapped a sable-lined cloak about herself and peered past tiled roofs to the faint shimmer of torchlight on the Blackwater. Somewhere along that dark ribbon waited Euron Greyjoy's prowling raiders, sharks in black water, teeth bared, patient. Behind her footsteps sounded, soft but sure. She did not need to turn to know it was Tyrion. Moonlight silvered the wine cup in his hand. He sighed, as if the night's silence weighed heavier than any council meeting. "We have coin to rebuild walls," he said, "yet we cannot rebuild trust as swiftly." She answered without looking. "Trust was the first stone shattered in this city. See the scars. They still glow like kiln cracks. We patch them, but the heat remains. Nami Chidomi." Tyrion leaned against the parapet. "Heat I can handle. It's cold that bothers me." He tipped the cup, amber gleam catching moon. "The North's letters speak of phantoms. And even I, cynic though I am, fear rumors that persist beyond rumor." Daenerys turned at last, strands of silver-gold hair drifting in the cold draught. "You once told me every city is built on stories. The North has always told tales of ice demons. But if even you fear them—" "I fear possibilities," he corrected. "The North is distant. Stories bend on their long journey south. But Lady Sansa is no wildling crone. She chooses words with blades inside them." He sipped. "We should heed her." "We will," Dany promised. "Olenna organizes convoys by dawn. I will send Rhaegal to fly above them. Show the North I honor our bond." "Good," Tyrion murmured. He studied her profile a moment. For months he had stood at her side, calm and calculating. Yet each counsel left new furrows at his brow. "What truly weighs on you?" he asked, quieter. She considered lying. Queenly poise demanded as much. Instead she exhaled. "I have conquered cities before. Liberated, they called it. Astapor, Yunkai, Merain, Doridai. Those places still burn in memory. Here, I sense a different ember, older, buried deep. Every decision feels like threading a needle in a storm. And I fear I'm not the seamstress my titles require." She smiled thinly. "But I have good tailors about me." "A tailor does not hold the cloth still," Tyrion said. "The cloth must settle itself, and King's Landing has never sat still in its life." He raised the cup in mock salute. "We'll stitch it yet." They parted to their chambers. Daenerys to restless sleep, Tyrion to parchment and wine. Below the hall, where dungeons once rang with wyverns, whispering rats, Jaime Lannister patrolled with a torch and a knight's duty heavier than steel. Guardians of the crown, Davos' new brotherhood, kept watch in pairs. Jaime paused at a barred cell that held Randall Tarley. The old lord glared at the torchlight, eyes cold as flint. "Here to gloat, Kingslayer?" Tarley growled. Jaime shook his head. "I've little stomach for gloating. I am here because every prisoner deserves a nightly check, a courtesy my sister denied 2 men. Tarley spat. "Your sister had iron." "She had poison," Jaime replied, surprising himself with the softness of his voice. "Iron stands longer." He moved on, flame flickering across walls, soot stained by ancient dragonfire. In another cell he found Qyburn, shackled yet scribbling on scraps. The man looked up, pale eyes gleaming with fervor undimmed by chains. "Sir Jaime," he crooned, "I have discovered notes on Valyrian regenerative alchemy. Could mend your missing hand, perhaps even grant you the strength of 10. But Jaime walked past without reply. Above, the small council convened at dawn. Olenna was first to arrive. Then Sir Davos, Maester Samwell. Arya, faced tonight as a simple serving girl for observation. And Prince Trystane. Daenerys entered last, hair braided in 3 rows for the 3 dragons she once commanded. Visions of ice threats, kraken fleets, and Greyjoy raids shaped their agendas. Samwell unrolled his own raven scrolls. White ravens from the Citadel report temperature drops across the reach. Frost severed half the spring barley near Old Oak. Something chills the wind. Olenna raised one gloved finger. Old Oak frost in spring. Unheard. Winter gallops south, faster than tails can outrace it. Mount Kirby. Davos frowned. The sea tells likewise. Eastwatch sailors claim bergs drifting along the Associ current. Trystane touched the hilt of his sun-forged sword. If cold grips so fierce, dawn must open its cellars. We have citrus, fig, and wine to trade for the realm's stores of grain. But we need safe roads. Arya cleared her throat, an unusual move for one so silent. Safe roads mean culling the last lion claws. Pockets of Lannister loyalists raid caravans near the Golden Tooth. I can remove their leader quietly. Daenerys held up a hand. No assassinations unless necessary. Capture him. Show mercy where my predecessor showed none. Every mercy seeds loyalty. Arya inclined her head, lips twitching faintly. Mercy then. I'll cut it out one piece at a time. Tyrion arrived late, hair disheveled, clutching a folded map dot. Apologies. The minutes of the Tyroshi spice trade kept me. He unfurled the parchment across the table. I propose a new port, levy. Spices taxed at entry will fund northern convoys. Euron will choke if he keeps the straits. Trade will funnel here. Down, Olenna hummed approval. Trade is garden soil, rich but prone to weeds, who oversees tariffs. Bronn, Tyrion answered, to several raised brows. He shrugged. The man knows coin, and his loyalty costs exactly as much as we pay. Pay him more. They debated until bells tolled tears. As the council dispersed, Tyrion lingered with Daenerys. A private morning court might ease tensions, he suggested. Show the people your ear remains open. She agreed, though her eyes lingered on the map's far edge where white blankness marked lands beyond the wall. That afternoon, word arrived in a burst of hoofbeats. Euron Greyjoy's flagship Silence had taken 3 grain galleys at the Mandermouth, hanged their captains, and left bodies nailed to masts as warning. The Bay Guard had been outmaneuvered. The message stank of prideful malice. A kraken's sigil carved into each corpse proved it. Daenerys convened war council at once. Garland Tyrell urged immediate naval sortie. Davos countered. Their green crews could not match Ironborn reavers. Tyrion proposed luring Euron inland with promise of plunder, convoys heavy with wine and silk, only to ambush with wildfire skiffs. Olenna vetoed the wildfire. We prune, not burn, she declared. No more green flames scar this coast. Jaime offered a quieter thought. Euron wants spectacle. Deny him stage. Turn villagers along the coast to safe holdfasts. Leave nothing but stone and silence. His fury vents on empty ground. We bide time until northern wind hampers his sails. But time was luxury. Each raid bled grain. The north needed. Daenerys dismissed council to think. Night fell. On the western bastion, Jaime met Brienne of Tarth, newly arrived with Riverland's petitions. She wore scarlet surcoat bearing her blue star, hair wind-tossed. They spoke beside a brazier. Lady Stoneheart's remnants, Harry Lannister forces near River Run, Brienne reported. Without new writs of pardon, blood spills. Jaime sighed. The wolf may forgive, the lion must earn it. I'll ride north with you, mediate. And face ghosts of your house, she asked. He touched his golden stump. I face them each dawn. She smiled. Sorrow soft. Then let's gather blankets. The road will test us. At first light, they departed, escorted by 6 Brotherhood knights, leaving King's Landing lighter yet somehow lonelier. Southward, in the high tower of Old Town's high tower, Maester Marwyn brewed obsidian oil from dragonglass shavings and resin of shadow binders. He read omens in black candle flame, a darkness with cold teeth, sweeping south, drowning songs. He sent ravens to Dragonstone, Daenerys' old haunt, warning her dragons alone would not suffice. On Dragonstone itself, Melisandre stared into flame and saw shapes of ice. Her exile ended once Stannis fell. Now she felt duty to the living. She wrote to the Queen of Dragons asking audience. The Lord of Light's fire calls you to war the night. She sealed it with wax shaped like a flaming heart. These many threads twined, none severed. Weeks passed. The North's convoys set off under Rhaegal's shadow, wagons creaking up the King's Road. Arya rode scout, eyes sharp for ambush. She caught 3 lion banners near Harrenhal, led by Sir Flement Brax, last of a proud branch. She confronted him plain-faced, needle to his throat. Brax yielded at promise of trial. Mercy, not death. Yet each captive slowed the convoy. By the time they reached Moat Caelan's swamps, snowflakes drifted thin and dry as ash. In King's Landing, Daenerys held mourning courts daily. Townsfolk petitioned for roof repairs, for lost kin buried in rubble, for coin to mend fishing nets. She dispensed justice, yet each decree etched fatigue deeper. Still, she rose, voice firm, listening. One court brought a Dornish envoy. Hilaria Sand, freed from captivity, escorted by Captain Ariohota. She knelt, pledging Dorne's full fleet against Euron Greyjoy. In return, she begged leniency for Randall Tarley. Her daughter Tyane loved Dickon, she confessed, and Dickon still prayed nightly for father's release. Daenerys considered. Olenna's lips thin. The realm wanted mercy, yet also message. She deferred judgment. Night that followed saw Drogon lift off, wings thunder, sailing above the city like a burning crescent. Children chased his shadow. On ramparts, Daenerys watched until he vanished. Sometimes she feared even Drogon might not return. Freedom bred wildness. The realm felt same, liberated yet restless, always on brink of flight or fall. Autumn flagged early. Chill clutched dawns. 3 more Raven reports. White walkers sighted along the last river. Wildlings fleeing. Castles of the Night's Watch empty save for a few ravens. The council met again. Samwell read accounts. Dead things that walk, blades that shatter, ice spiders large as hounds. Laughter died quick. Oh. Tyrion poured wine with shaking hand. Daenerys rose. Enough. The Iron Throne slept while fire brewed and ice crept. I will not. I leave for Winterfell with my dragons and Unsullied. Tyrion governs in my stead with Olenna at council. Milorn, Shidu Anasto City. Jibnuaddi. Olenna objected. The city is fledgling. It needs mother's wing. Winter needs dragon's flame. Daenerys answered. Her eyes found Tyrion. Will you stay? I will, he said softly. Though I should see the wall one day, if only to believe it exists. Preparations began. Supplies loaded onto river barges. Unsullied companies marched. Dothraki riders restless to test snow. Grey Worm requested leave to train new recruits in Riverlands first. Cold rusted even Valyrian steel if mines froze. Daenerys granted it. On the morning she departed, crowds lined streets silent, clutching candles. They watched a silver-haired queen ride pale mare beneath her banners. Regal swooping overhead, Drogon taking flight from the dragon pit with roar like thunderclap. Even those who mistrusted dragons felt stir of pride. The realm at last sent strength northward rather than ignoring it. Tyrion watched from the battlements until the dark shapes dwindled beyond the hills. He turned to Olenna. 2 rulers travel beyond our walls. The one who sits the throne here, and the one who holds the people's hearts out there. Then we guard both, Olenna replied. Hearts are fragile when left alone. Trouble soon tested them. 3 nights after Daenerys' departure, Euron's longships slipped into Blackwater Bay under moonless sky, muffled oars, dipping like shadows. Spies, said the royal fleet, patrolled upriver, escorting grain. The harbor lay nearly undefended. Silence itself anchored near the mud gate, lowered gangplanks and disgorged reavers. Bronn's harbor garrison scrambled, but the Ironborn moved swift. They set fire to 3 warehouses, silk, glass, and spice. Flames licked the sky, smoke bloomed. Tyrion rushed to the ramparts barefoot, heart pounding. Euron strode the quay like a victorious wraith, eye patch glinting. He called up to walls. Little, come greet the man your queen spurned. Tyrion ordered archers to aim. Euron laughed, arms wide. Loose, and my ships rain fire on every dock. The capital will starve. Torches behind him flashed. Bronn pushed through ranks, crossbow on shoulder. Hold your piss, he muttered to Tyrion. We can't risk it. From tower walkway, Olenna appeared, grey cloak snapping. She leaned on parapet, voice carrying crisp. Greyjoy, looking for applause. I hear Pike's cliffs provide fine echoes. Euron smirked. Old rose, your petals wilt quick. I demand parley. Alone, imp and kraken, mid-harbor. Refuse and I shatter every hull. Tyrion's face paled. Bronn cursed. Olenna studied sea of masts. He means to take you hostage, she warned. I know, Tyrion said. Bronn grabbed his sleeve. And you'll let him? Tyrion's gaze settled on burning warehouses. Hundreds of jobs. Next season's grain shipped ready for North. I will. He turned to Olenna. Prepare for plan Flame Eater. She frowned. I banned wildfire. No fire, he assured. Numbers and nets. At dawn, Tyrion rode alone to a small sandbar between piers, Euron leaping from silence. Tall, windswept. Reaving grin stretched across his beard. My queen sends regards, Tyrion began, praying his voice carried authority. If you seek marriage pledges, she rides north. Turn your fleet to White Harbor, aid her, and we speak. Lui, Euron scoffed. Aid? I come to conquer hearts, not serve. I want this city when ice devours you. So you raid warehouses, Tyrion noted. Bold. Euron's grin faded. Listen, dwarf, I hold 10,000 tongues thirsting for screaming. Give me the rose hag, alive, and I withdraw until Yuletide. An enticing offer. Tyrion rocked heel to toe. Yet I cannot, because she'd kill me slowly in afterlife if I did. Euron drew an axe. Then we carve the gift from your ribs. Whistles shrilled from shore. Nets flung from hidden scorpions flew outward, weighted with lead, draping across Euron's longship's sails, tangling masts. Oars snapped as crews tried to row. From quays submerged stakes rose, a boom chain hauled taut. By harbor cranes, Bronn commandeered. Ironborn cursed as hulls ground wood against iron. Euron roared, brandished axe. Tyrion stepped back. Arrow thudded in the sand at Euron's feet, warning shot from ramparts. Bronn called, next one goes in your good eye. Even caged, Euron laughed. Clever net, dwarf. But I sail by tide. I'll return. Now, Eusinia, you'll return in irons if luck deserts you, Tyrion said. He offered safe conduct for his men, predicated on immediate withdrawal and ransom coins. Euron spat yet nodded. Chains slackened. Ironborn rode out, nursing wounded pride. Tyrion returned, legs shaking. Olenna waited with tea. You gamble much, she said. Gambling requires coin, he sighed. I wagered only wit and nets. Olenna sipped. Wit we can spare, nets we repair. The city stands. Days later, a raven beat bloody wings against Maker's window at dusk. Tyrion cracked seal. Daenerys. Winterfell reached. Dragons circled. King in the north, Jon Snow, pledged alliance. But behind walls they found horror. Corpses walking through mists outside last hearth, and whites felled only by dragonglass. Jon urged every smith south to forge dragonglass weapons. Tyrion called emergency council. Samwell explained caches existed on Dragonstone still. Mining resumed under unsullied guard. Prince Trystane sent message to Sunspear requesting obsidian shipments from desert caves. Garland Tyrell marshaled smiths of the Reach. Olenna oversaw schedule like orchard harvest. Yet forging weapons required time, and the enemy marched. Reports, said the Night King, ancient legend, rode dead dragon Viserion, stolen from Dany on Essos shores. None yet believed fully, until a chill wind swept from north even to capital, and sky painted eerie aurora one midnight. Master Samwell stood atop the rookery watching the lights shimmer. We need hope, he murmured. Hope arrived next day. Rhaegar Targaryen's last surviving page discovered in dusty vault, detailing ancient ritual to strengthen wall wards, if performed by dragonfire and king's blood combined. Message sent to Jon. His blood might suffice. Tyrion prayed. Meanwhile, Jaime and Brienne negotiated with Lady Stoneheart's remnants. They found her true identity long rumored, Catelyn Stark reborn by magic. She refused audience, but allowed her followers to parley. Jaime offered Tarly's release for their fealty against the deathless foe. They agreed, surprising him. En return route, Jaime and Brienne encountered wildlings fleeing south, pursued by whites. They fought side by side, in moonlit glade, Jaime's gold hand wielding torch, Brienne's sword glowing in frostlight. They scorched the dead, hearts pounding. That night, under frost-sparked sky, they shared blanket and slow confession of fears they bore for years. Dawn found them closer than comrades, though neither named the thread. At Winterfell, Daenerys walked snowy godswood with Jon Snow, steam-plumed as they spoke of war and duty. A raven arrived. Tyrion's plea for king's blood at the wall. Jon touched. Then my blood I give. A tower bell rang. White walkers sighted 5 leagues out. Battle lines formed among rampart shadows. Dothraki rode flamelit Arax. Dragons screamed overhead. Northern bannermen raised shining Valyrian steel gifted by Gendry Baratheon smithing new alloy of dragon glass steel. The battle at the Shivering Plain lasted 3 nights. Drogon's fire seared ranks of undead. Rhaegal smashed skeletal giants with tail sweeps. Yet Viserions' blue flame carved trenches of glass. At moonset on the 3rd dawn, Jon and Arya joined. She had ridden ahead of convoys, plunging dragonglass spears into lieutenants of ice. Bran Stark, now mystic 3-eyed raven, watched through Raven's swarm, guiding sisters' steps. Finally, Daenerys faced the Night King atop a hillock, Drogon lightning behind her. She surged closer, flame poured. The Night King lifted arm, parting fire with storm-cooled air. Spears of ice shot. Drogon banked, crashing into snow. Daenerys tumbled, but Jorah's nephew Eric, newly knighted, shielded her. Jon charged, long claw risen. Steel met ice, sparks hissed. Arya circled, dagger of Valyrian dagger poised. Bran's voice echoed through ravens. Strike now. Arya leapt, blade burying ice lord's neck. Jon drove sword into heart of ice shards. Blue flame roared out as Night King shattered. Viserion screeched, lost guidance, crashed. The dead collapsed, yet far from all. Legions marched still south, where commanders unslain directed them. Ravens carried news south. Tyrion gathered city militia to train. Olenna oversaw quartermasters. Bronn cursed at freight lists. Hibern, from Cell, offered formulas of wildfire to use against ice. They ignored him. Euron returned again, this time under storm's roar, seeking to snatch refugees fleeing north. But Rhaegal swept from sky, riderless, guided by Dany's distant bond, torching silence's deck. Euron leapt into sea, laughter echoing even as waves swallowed him. No one saw him rise again. Winter's breath reached King's Landing. Snowflakes clung to lion gargoyles. People remarked last true snow. Here fell an egg on the 5th youth. Yet they did not despair. Grain stores held, bakeries warmed streets with aroma of fresh loaves. Olenna insisted on roses strewn along streets each festival day, bright amidst white dust. In the throne room, Tyrion received a northern envoy, Sansa Stark herself, cheeks pink with cold, wearing dire wolf fur, trimmed with rose silk. She knelt lightly. The North stands, thanks to South's aid. But war isn't done. We need every forge south of Blackwater forging blades of dawn. Tyrion gestured to casks of obsidian ingots, already en route. Sansa's gaze softened. You surprise me, Lord Tyrion. He smiled sadly. Marriage of convenience leaves unexpected respect. He stood. Walk the gardens, their snow-kissed this hour. They strolled among frost-laden hedges, speaking quietly of past fears and future aims. Weeks wove into months. Front clearings north of the neck saw battles where Tyrell pikemen fought whites beside Dothraki horsemen, Dornish spears, and Riverland archers. Jaime's Brotherhood of the Crown earned legend at the Weeping Water, where Brienne slew 12 whites, guarding an ice giant. Songs spread. The Great Council in King's Landing convened daily by Raven Crystal Orb, allowing Bran to speak through shimmering illusions. He sat among them, despite distance, eyes milky. He foretold one final night when Wall of Storm would sweep everything to the Trident. All forces converged for last defense. Canals were dug, trenches lined with wildfire stolen from Qyburn's cell. Tyrion relented at last, albeit under Maester's supervision. When the storm front arrived, sky blacked, lightning blue. Whites poured across broken King's Road. Daenerys led dragons in sky. Jon commanded ground. Arya and Brienne danced among ice. Jaime rallied cavalry. Olenna, frail but fierce, rode litter to forward command, dispensing orders with trembling voice turned steel. Tyrion directed wildfire detonation with signal flares, green lines scorching, undead rank, sealing trenches of flame. At climax, Bran's ravens swarmed above battlefield, guiding regal-bearing Daenerys toward Heart of Storm, where remnant ice sorcerers chanted. She unleashed dragonfire as Arya hurled obsidian-tipped spear from horse. The last shard of night cracked. Blizzard stilled. Snow fell quiet, gentle. Dead husks collapsed again. This time, none rose. Silence spanned plain until first cheer, a northern boy lifting broken spear. And then a roar across lines, human voices riotous with survival. Dragons circled overhead, triumphant. Victories cost vast, thousands fell. But sun broke clouds next morning, painting fields gold. Snowflakes melted, revealing crocus buds beneath. They'd lain dormant, awaiting warmth. In King's Landing, bells pealed not in mournful echo, but jubilation. People spilled into squares. Tyrion wept openly atop the ramparts. Months later, spring unfurled proper. Queen Daenerys returned, banners furled, armor dulled. She dismounted before the great sept's new foundation stone, where a sapling weirwood took root, symbol of unity of gods north and south. She laid sword at its base, promising rule tempered by counsel. Coronations often breed intrigue. This one birthed accords. She named Sansa, Stark the Queen's hand for North affairs, Tyrion the hand of the Queen for capital, Olenna Lady Protector of the Reach, until Garland's firstborn matured, Brienne Lady Commander of the Crown Knights, Jaime Warden of the West pardoned. Dorne received Charter of Independence with equal council seat. At Highgarden midsummer, Olenna finally rested. She walked among rose arbors buzzing with bees, cane tapping. Boy ran up, Margaery's cousin Willis' son, holding a single white rose tinged pink. For you, Grandma Thorne, he said. She knelt, accepted, breathed scent. Tears pricked but did not fall. Night found her writing final journal entry. I have pruned a realm, and still thorns remain, but petals cascade in colors unseen for a generation. If tomorrow brings weeds anew, so be it. That is a gardener's promise. Never cease tending. Newman. She set quill aside, extinguished candle, and slept easier than in many years. From the wall's broken remnants, spring thaw trickled south. Rhaegal and Drogon nested on Dragonstone cliffs, free to roam. Castles mended, fields tilled, songs woven anew, ballads of queens of fire, of roses that seized capitals, of ice's last breath. Some days Daenerys visited the ruins of old Septi, placing candles for those lost to wildfire and winter alike. She wore no crown on those walks, only simple cloak. Citizens bowed, but she bade them rise, for thrones endured by those willing to stand. One evening, she met Olenna in the royal gardens, each holding small pruning shears. They clipped stray stems together. A realm without weeds would bore us, Daenerys mused. Olenna chuckled. Precisely. Remember that when next some lordling plots treason. Work for your gardeners. They shared smile, sunrise tinting sky, peach beyond towers. Thus the realm moved forward, slow, stumbling, resilient. The gardener's hands, the dragon's flame, the wolf's vigilance, the rose's thorn, the dwarf's wit, all stitched new history from ragged cloth. And across quiet nights, in courtyards scented of lemon and ash, old ghosts of wildfire sighed and faded, replaced by laughter of children chasing petals in spring wind. Sounds sweeter than any bell.